Hi there, welcome back. For some reason, there's one album that I always play while cooking for Thanksgiving. Why am I bringing up Thanksgiving in February? Because I want to talk about this album now and not wait until Thanksgiving. All right, I'm going to give you 3 guesses for what album I always listen to while cooking for Thanksgiving. Ready? Various artists, Thanksgiving, a Windham Hill collection? No. Okay, I won't make you guess anymore because unless you might have seen and remember a Facebook post of mine from circa 2002 on Thanksgiving, it's unlikely you'll guess. That's right, the perfect record will reflect on being grateful for how much of a freak you are. Prince's Controversy. This week on Doug's Music Fun channel. Yeah, fun. So let's get this out of the way. This is an adult album, meaning that the songs of this album are downright nasty. Miss Jackson if you're nasty. And the discussion will reflect that. This is Prince's 4th studio album, released in 1981. Most of the songs were written by Prince, and he also played most of the instruments on the recording. His first 3 recordings showed much promise and announced him as an R&B wonder kid, playing all the instruments with amazing funk beats. And they were even more sexually explicit than Controversy, although not by much. I like Blender's Keith Harris's line about how Controversy is Prince's first attempt to get you to love him for his mind, not just his body. Prince's take on these songs noted the slight trend away from sex, noting in Melody Maker in 1981 that, quote, "More than my songs have to do with sex, they have to do with one human's love for another, which goes deeper than anything political that anybody could possibly write about. The need for love, the need for sexuality, basic freedom, equality," end quote. In addition, like his first 3 records, Controversy was primarily recorded at studios in Minnesota and California, and given some of his touring bandmates, Lisa Coleman, Dr. Fink, Bobby Z, contributions to the record, Controversy hints at his future group, The Revolution, that would come together in the mid-80s. Here's the personnel that recorded Controversy. Prince, lead and backing vocals, electric guitars, keyboards, bass guitar, drums, and drum machines. Lisa Coleman, backing vocals and keyboards. Dr. Fink on keyboards. Bobby Z on drums, drum machines, and a rumored Morris Day also on drums and vocals, although not credited. Touré's wonderful biography of Prince, I Will Die For You, recounts an incident prior to the release of Controversy. Prince and his band were opening for the Rolling Stones' Tattoo You tour. Matt Fink, aka Dr. Fink, played in these shows and recounts Mick Jagger and Keith Richards were enamored with Prince, and they felt he was someone that should be introduced to a huge audience, so they requested his presence as a warm-up act, end quote. Touré notes that, quote, "This must have been a huge compliment to Prince, who also thought a lot about Mick in the early days." Des Dickerson, a guitarist in various Prince bands, including The Revolution, said, "The one thing he talked to me about a number of times in the early going was he wanted he and I to be the black version of the Glimmer Twins, to have that Keith and Mick thing, and have a rock and roll vibe fronting this new kind of band. That's what he wanted," end quote. On October 9th, 1981, just 5 days before the release of Controversy, Prince and the band were booed off the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum stage opening for the Stones by a sold-out crowd of roughly 90,000 people. Fink recalls, quote, "We get on stage and within 2 minutes of the first song, the audience, which was a hardcore hippie crowd, they took one look at Prince and went, 'What the heck is this?' And they started booing, flipping us the bird. I'd say out of the first 60 rows of people, 80% of them were flipping us the bird. And they're throwing whatever they can get their hands on. So here we are, being pummeled with food. I got hit in the side of my head with a crumpled up Coca-Cola can. I saw a fifth of Jack Daniels whiz by Prince's face. Must have missed him by less than 1/4 of an inch. That scared the bejesus out of him, and 3 songs into the set, he walked off stage in a bit of a panic, some fear going on there." End quote. Prince left his band on stage, went straight to his car, then straight to the airport, and flew back to Minneapolis. Coincidentally enough, the song they were playing when this occurred was "Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad." Jagger called Prince and asked him to come back to the tour. Jagger related to him that how once you play to a large enough crowd, you will get crap thrown at you. And Dickerson told Prince that he'd been assaulted at biker bars before, telling him, "You can't let them run you out of town." Prince did return and faced down more of the same. He told Robert Hilburn of the Los Angeles Times, quote, "I'm sure wearing underwear and a trench coat didn't help matters, but if you throw trash at anybody, it's because you weren't trained right at home." End quote. Prince went on to achieve even greater success after those hard bumps in the road, igniting a crossover appeal arguably not seen since. Des Dickerson notes that, quote, "Prince was generally a fan of Sly, but also a fan of Graham Central Station and Santana and the Bar-Kays. So all of that music showed up in the stew, but none of it was an overt homage. It was meant to be a new flavor." End quote. Prince's rise occurred during a societal shift and parallel rise in multiculturalism. As Alan Leeds, an accomplished music executive and tour manager, notes in Touré's book, quote, "My generation, the boomers, said, 'Who does he think he is, trying to be white?' But the younger age group, the Questloves and D'Angelos who are coming up, they didn't see it that way at all. They grew up looking at the music differently than previous generation because the walls were down, and they embraced the music purely on quality as opposed to any kind of categorization. So it was an evolutionary time, and not just in the music. The music was reflecting the evolution of the culture at large." End quote. Let's dive into the tracks. The first song expressing this multi-layered performer and artistic vision, the title track, Controversy. In the lyrics, Prince pretends he doesn't understand why people are asking questions about him. Am I black or white? Am I straight or gay? Thus, of course, furthering that speculation. Multiculturalism gets addressed directly in the song, with Prince wishing, quote, "There were no black or white, I wish there were no rules." End quote. As Touré notes, Prince is asking, "Who cares about my personal stats? Let's just have fun." You also wonder about the correlation of his faith in God to sexuality. In this opening song, there is a break at about the 3-minute, 28-second mark that features a version of the Lord's Prayer. Des Dickerson notes in Benoit Clark's book, Prince, All the Songs, the Story Behind Every Track, that, quote, "Prince feels like he has a special talent and God gave it to him. He told me we were sent to help people see. He had this sense that he was enlightened, and we as a band were messengers who were there to bring this enlightenment to people who needed it. It was a musical mission. That's why he put the Lord's Prayer in the middle of Controversy." End quote. Lyrics and multiculturalism aside, Controversy is supra-alien funky with polyrhythms everywhere, lines echoing each other, a rhythmic delight that gets me in the mood to boogie my way around the kitchen, making my, well, Martha Stewart's macaroni and cheese for the 800th time or thereabouts. Yeah, macaroni and cheese! So we have the Lord's Prayer and controversy. Time for some religion and sex in the next track, Sexuality. Prince wants to take us to another world where we don't need clothes, because in the second coming, anything goes. Prince is squealing along a synth-washed funk beat. Rhythm guitar slipping in and out brings us to all we ever need, which is natch sexuality. We don't need segregation, race, etc., just sexuality. Prince calls us to organize, stand up for a new breed leader, protesting against tourists with, quote, 89 flowers on their back, who also invented the AccuJack.
What the fuck?
AccuJack, Google it, but not around your parents. And clear your browser history afterwards. You should probably get rid of those cookies and cache too. This song, too, is a super cool boogieing beat. On that note, I'm with you, Prince. I'm behind you, you funkadelic new breed leader. Just let me mash some potatoes. Yeah, mashed potatoes. Because in my family growing up, one starch was never enough. On to the next track. Do Me Baby. Oh yeah, let's slow down into a sexy groove and ballad, but also address some controversy surrounding the album controversy. Andre Simone, Prince's former bass player, who left the band prior to the release of Controversy, has laid claim to this song entirely and other songs partially, saying that Prince took these songs from jam sessions they had together prior to Simone's departure. This song in particular wasn't called Do Me Baby, but other people already had recordings of it from Andre, who was naturally surprised by hearing it on the album. Consequently, he was able to prove he wrote it and received a songwriting credit. That's some bitter cranberry sauce without enough sugar right there. Getting past this and into the song's spirit and structure, this is an example of Prince's mixing of gospel and sexual with his climaxing scream in a gospel fashion, but denoting a literal orgasm. Toure relates this dynamic very well. Quote, "One of the central features of gospel is that ecstatic climactic scream that recalls both religious transcendence and sexual orgasm. It usually comes after the singer has left the structure of the music and even seems to have left behind the boundaries of language. At that point, they leap over the highest pitch that we've heard in the music to give us a high, long-sustained note that represents the spirit entering the body and lifting it up to a place of transcendence and superhuman ecstasy. Some scholars call this the getting over moment. I prefer to call it getting the spirit moment, and it's as much a major part of Black American music experience as it is a part of the Black church musical experience." End quote. Toure goes on to note that we hear the moment for the first time in Prince's discography in Do Me Baby, and how although it might seem sacrilegious to find these gospel tropes in an overtly sexual song, this collision is a common feature of Black music. Questlove has referred to these as, quote, fire and brimstone screams, end quote, and we hear them again in various degrees at the end of later Prince songs, 1999, When Doves Cry, Darling Nikki, and many others. Eric Leeds, a saxophone player for Prince, has said, quote, "When a song really meant something to him, he would just inhabit it, much like a gospel singer would. Whether the source is spiritual or secular, when you feel it, end quote. I think these primal screams are nothing short of awesome and have fond memories of reaching quickly to turn down the cassette player in Dad's car before such releases, as Father was decidedly not so fond of them. Let's flip her over on to side B, shall we? Side B begins with Private Joy, a propulsive beat marking the first Prince recording utilizing a Lin M1 drum computer, prompting Bobby Z to soon add electronic percussion and MIDI drum pads to his drum kit. This was the last song to be recorded on the album and also marked the start of Prince working with Peggy McCreary, a recording engineer at Sunset Sound, who would work on several other albums as well. I love Prince's intro vocal, crooning over that electronic drum before the verse, and also his soaring vocals and backup vocals during the chorus. It's a great song. Next up is Ronne Talked to Russia, an under 2-minute affair wherein Prince prompts Ronne, Ronald Reagan, to talk to Russia before they destroy us. A quick, fun song highlighted with Prince's blistering guitar. Up next is Let's Work, a grinding groove punctuated with Prince's funky slap bass line. Not initially popular with its release, it became a fan favorite, and as Clerk writes, quote, contains all the ingredients of the Minneapolis sound and is a tribute to the African American community in the city, end quote. Anti-Christian follows, a play on Antichrist, a little more direct when he says Antichrist. Annie would have you believe that, quote, she's his only son, end quote. Gender bending there, probably intentional, and takes credit for a whole lot of evil that went on during the time, from children murdered in Atlanta to the murder of John Lennon and the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan. Ending this album on a suitably nasty note is Jack You Off. I just love Prince's soaring chorus again, sounding dangerously close to a children's melody. Recorded at the Hollywood Sound Recorders Studios in August 1981, this song is the first recorded with his musicians under live conditions to have made it onto an album, foreshadowing great things to come with this tight group of musicians. And with that being the dessert course, homemade vanilla ice cream, I'd say we're stuffed with Prince and need a nap, and possibly a cigarette. So take care, everyone. Thanks for coming along my silly journey with this excellent record. Until next time.